Hello and welcome to Monster of the Week, the only show on the internet that thinks dogs should be allowed to vote. Today we are talking about a creature that I suspect many of you have never heard of before, but is sure to leave a lasting impression for both good and uncanny reasons, the moondog. At first glance, this may look like just about any other fantasy canine creature, but if we scroll down just a little bit, yep, those are human hands. Why does this dog have human hands? Well, today we're going to answer that question and more. As always, we're going to go over the moondog's publication history throughout the editions of D&D, as well as its lore and ecology. Then we're going to talk about how we might use it at the game table, and of course convert the thing into D&D 5th edition. So, if you're ready to learn everything there is to know about the celestial dog creature with human hands and a telepathic bark, I am more than ready to take you on this journey. The moondog first appeared in the Monster Manual 2 for AD&D. The artwork here, like most D&D art at the time, is pretty simple and a little bit uncanny. It's just one of those creatures that at first glance doesn't look like anything too weird, but the longer you look at it, the more you start to notice. Aside from various monster compendiums and adventure appearances, the next time we'd see the moondog would be in the pages of a 3rd edition D&D product called the Book of Exalted Deeds. This book was released in October of 2003, 20 years ago, exactly 1 year after the Book of Vile Darkness, and was meant to be an inversion of the horrible and vile things presented the year previous. While the Book of Vile Darkness was all about the most heinous and evil character options, monsters, and magic items you could find, the Book of Exalted Deeds was filled with character classes, spells, and magic items for only the most dedicated champions of good and righteousness. Something really interesting about this book is that, much like its edgy cousin, it too came with a mature audiences only sticker slapped on the front. However, where the Book of Vile Darkness wore this sticker as a sort of warning about the tremendous amount of gore and sexual content within its pages, the Book of Exalted Deed bears this sticker because of the implied questions surrounding morality it poses. There isn't too much in the way of shocking imagery, but the book does get pretty wrapped up in ethics and morality, something that is definitely geared towards a more mature audience. But aside from all the new player stuff, there is of course a whole bunch of monsters, both old and new, included in this book for the Dungeon Master. And one of our returning monstrous faces was of course the moondog. This depiction of the creature is a lot less uncanny than their original art, making the humanoid hands look a bit more natural. But the creature, of course, generally remains the same, just with a few cool new tricks. In the Forgotten Realms, moondogs hail from the plane of Elysium, which is the plane of pure good. If you were to assign this plane an alignment, it would be neutral good, just good stuff all around without too much of a focus on law and no chaos to kind of mix things up all the time. It's basically the most idyllic version of the good aligned planes and can pretty well be described as heaven. In any other setting, moondogs are most likely to hail from whatever the most kind of neutral good aligned plane happens to be. As celestial creatures, they are generally good-natured and tend to make company with the likes of solars, planetars, and other angels or archons. They have an intelligence score of 15, making them not just sentient, but pretty smart by most metrics as well. They can of course speak several different languages, but they often choose to communicate telepathically. Outside of their home plane, moondogs can be found all throughout the multiverse, acting out missions assigned by whichever deity they happen to be aligned with, and in many cases, that deity is Selûne, the goddess of the moon and stars and Baldur's Gate 3. Makes sense. But wherever they happen to be, they are always pushing towards their goals of protecting those who can't protect themselves. Real Book of Exalted Deeds kind of stuff. Sometimes they will also be dispatched to aid other creatures, such as the aforementioned angels, on whatever mission they're trying to accomplish, which is kind of awesome. I especially love the idea of a moondog working with a hound archon because they're just varying degrees of dog and humanoid, but I digress. According to their lore, they are also sometimes confused with Yeth hounds, who were introduced to 5th edition in Volo's Guide to Monsters. And in many ways, much like the Book of Vile Darkness and Exalted Deeds, the moondog and the Yeth hound are inversions of one another. While Yeth hounds are significantly weaker, they tend to serve a dark master of some kind, while the moondog can be found on the other side of the battlefield, serving the goals of the righteous. In fact, where the moondog really shines is on the battlefield. They have a slew of abilities that make them fantastic allies and fearsome foes, so let's talk about just exactly what this puppy can do. Clocking in at CR10, the Moondog has a ton of different options in combat that make it unpredictable as an opponent. For starters, it has a bite attack. I know. Seems pretty crazy, but stick with me. A bite attack combined with pack tactics is something we definitely have seen many times before with basically every canine monster. The Moondog is no different, and it is very effective. But where things really start to get interesting is when we look at its next action called Bark. This dog's bark is indeed worse than its bite, especially if you're some kind of creature from the lower planes. When the dog barks as an action, it can choose one of 3 magical effects to impose. The first is called Ward. The warding bark protects either itself or an ally of its choosing within 30 feet from celestials, elementals, fae, fiends, and undead. All the creatures I just mentioned have disadvantage on the chosen target when they make attacks against them. The second mode is called Break Enchantment, which, believe it or not, breaks enchantments. This allows the Moondog to end an effect that is charming, frightening, or possessing another creature. Which brings us to the third and final mode called Dismissal, which acts essentially the same as the banishment spell. It can force a creature to make a saving throw, and if they fail, banishes them back to their home plane, assuming they're not already there. It also has an action called Bay that allows it to bay loudly and force all creatures within 30 feet to make a wisdom save or become frightened of the Moondog for 1 minute. But if more damage is what you're after, the Moondog can instead opt to howl, causing 3d10 psychic damage to all creatures within 40 feet or half as much on a successful wisdom save. And of course, if the Moondog or one of its allies is wounded in battle, it can use the Soothing Ministrations action to lick the creature's wounds and heal them for 2d6 plus 4. Much like the Paladin's Lay on Hands ability, this action can also be used to remove a poison or disease affecting the target instead of healing them, which is honestly really good even though it is situational. Anytime a creature or a spell has an ability that allows for a specific fringe circumstance while not subtracting from what the primary spell's purpose is, it's good. So every round of combat, the Moondog can choose to either howl, bark, or bay, and then make 2 bite attacks by using its multi-attack action. Whether it's going for pure offense, a mix of bites and defense, or just straight up healing, there are lots of strong choices the Moondog can make on its turn. And again, having pack tactics is going to make it exceptionally good in melee combat when fighting alongside an ally. And speaking of allies, the Moondog can cast a few spells. I promise the segue makes sense, just stick with me. At will, it can cast Dancing Lights, Darkness, Fog Cloud, Hypnotic Pattern, and Moonbeam, the latter of which are both exceptionally useful spells. And it can cast Speak with Animals, but in a way that only allows it to talk with canine creatures, which is a fun little detail. But its big spell, which it can only use once per day, is Planar Ally. Planar Ally is a really interesting spell that requires some extra attention. The first chunk of the spell's text reads, "You beseech an otherworldly entity for aid. That being must be known to you, a god, a primordial, a demon prince, or some other being of cosmic power. That entity sends a celestial, an elemental, or a fiend loyal to it to aid you, making the creature appear in an unoccupied space within range. If you know a specific creature's name, you can speak that name when you cast a spell to request that creature, though you might get a different creature anyway. DM's choice." In the case of a player casting this spell, there's a whole other section about hiring that creature and what their price is for doing whatever task it is you're trying to assign the summon to do, but that's not really relevant here. In the case of the Moondog, it is going to use this spell almost always to summon whatever celestial creature it is working with. For the dog owners out there, it's like when your dog just starts barking randomly and you come into the room to see what's wrong. Except magic. Say the Moondog is teamed up with a Solar and they're out hunting for a fiend. If the Moondog finds its target first, it's going to cast a spell to bring its master straight to it so that they can get to work. It is worth noting that this spell takes 10 minutes to cast, so it won't be doing this in combat. But it's a great way to move some pieces around on the board, so to speak, and it's thematic as hell. That said though, strictly speaking, it doesn't have to use this spell to summon the creature that it's allied with. It could still use it to summon a demon or devil or some kind of elemental or whatever. Why it would ever do that really depends on the situation at hand, but that's a perfect segue into our next topic, which is how we might actually use this creature within the context of a story. As we've discussed, one of the most common roles for a moondog to play is that of a powerful celestial creature's companion. A moondog acting alongside an angel or high-level Aasimar is going to be a great little bit of extra flavor and will make any potential combat encounters a bit more dynamic. Whether the pair is out hunting fiends, seeking powerful relics, or just playing out the weirdest buddy cop film of all time, it'll be great. If I've learned anything over a long career of being a dungeon master, it is that players love interacting with animals, especially animals that can talk. It doesn't matter if you're playing the moondog as a pompous, well-to-do creature set on doing his duty, or a playful puppy out to explore the multiverse, everyone is going to want to talk to the telepathic angel dog with human hands. If you happen to be running a particularly high-level campaign, perhaps the deity of a particular player character even sends the moondog to act as their companion. It is a CR 10 creature, so adjust the stats as needed, but thematically, a moondog would be a really cool animal companion for a high-level ranger, druid, cleric, paladin, or honestly anyone who fits thematically with their whole deal. Maybe the moondog even uses its planar ally spell to summon the player on occasion. Which isn't really how that spell works, but you could stretch it to do something kind of fun here. We can also look for inspiration in one of the modules that has a moondog playing a minor role. In 3rd edition's Shadowvale, the Scouring of the Land, a moondog appears as a potential ally. His name is Couteau, and he has formed a massive pack of wolves which he leads. Unfortunately, his leadership has been usurped by a monstrous winter wolf who is corrupted by the villains of our tale. So, the party has a chance here to help Couteau regain control of the pack by destroying or banishing or just getting rid of the winter wolf named Frostbite. If they defeat the winter wolf, the pack disperses and Couteau is free from the burden of his failure to maintain control. However, if the party challenges the winter wolf to single combat and defeats him honorably, Couteau is able to regain control of the entire pack, and the party now has a new faction to be aligned with. Now, this whole situation, of course, has broader implications in the actual module itself, but this little piece of it could be used as a random encounter for pretty much any game. I could even see a version of this where instead of wolves, there's a moondog leading all the pet dogs in a city or town as if they were some kind of secret organization. If you've ever seen the movie Cats and Dogs, basically just do that. For those who haven't seen the cinematic masterpiece that is Cats and Dogs, basically, you would have all the dogs in town acting as a spy network, watching all the goings-on in the city, keeping an eye out for evildoers, and reporting anything uncouth from dog to dog until word reaches the moondog leader and they can call for help from their planar ally. Maybe through this spy network, the party is even caught doing something they shouldn't be doing, or even better, there's a misunderstanding and the moondog believes them to be a threat. This could lead to an interesting encounter where the moondog confronts the party about their perceived crime. Combat might break out, or if the party truly is innocent, maybe they even team up to find the true culprit. But no matter how this plays out, I can guarantee a network of pet spy dogs wasn't on your player's prediction list. I also really like moondogs as custodians of a strange and alien place. I keep imagining them as assistants working in a library, sort of like the dogs in that one episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. They have human hands too, so sorting books would be a breeze. As pretty intelligent creatures, they could also have politics and factions within their own organizations. Maybe the moondogs working in a library and Sigil, the City of Doors, are all trying to unionize for better pay or something, I don't know. I just like the idea of taking a very human plot and applying it to the dogs with human hands. But no matter how you choose to deploy this creature, if you do want to use it in your D&D campaign, you're not playing 3rd edition D&D, but you are playing 5th edition, linked in the description down below is a Google document that contains all the information you will need to successfully run this creature at the game table. And if you are one of my lovely patrons over on the Dungeon Dad Patreon page, you can find the Dungeon Dad Patron stat block, which contains all the same information, but it's just presented in a high-res PDF stat sheet with new artwork and all the fancy schmancy ribbons and whatnot. Speaking of patrons, thank you so much for supporting what I do here. I literally couldn't do it without you, which brings us to our next point. It's time for Patron of the Week. This week's randomly selected patron is Jordan Roberts. Thank you so much for the support, my friend. I would never rob you of the recognition you deserve. And thank you for watching. As always, if there is a creature from an older version of D&D or Pathfinder or some other tabletop role-playing game that you would like to see me cover on this channel and convert into 5th edition, let me know in the comments down below or over on the Discord server in the Creature Suggestions channel, and put forth your suggestion. It will be added to the master list. And who knows? You might just see it show up on an episode of Monster of the Week. I had a ton of fun talking about this creature, so hopefully you enjoyed listening to me talk about it, and hopefully I'll see you next week for something very special. But that's all for now. I'll see you in the next one. Till then.
This monster is going through an awful breakup. It seems like the poor guy just can't hold himself together. But maybe if it can learn to control these rampant fragments, it will assemble a sense of self. Next episode, Puzzle Golem. Tune in next time for lots more fan service.